pretty easy.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're ready.
I'm ready. On in.
$258 Street, same as last year. There's a lot going on.
I see. I don't.
You were prepared.
Everybody. What's the mic load? 2. What you got? Did you do a mic wash? Did you do it? Yeah. Are you still have a hive at your yard? You left 3 of them?
I had a single box and they had 2 double boxes. And I fed them the rocket fuel.
Oh, yeah, so they took off, that's good.
Oh, every frame, it's solid proof.
Who's done a inspection so far, spring inspection? Let's see, okay, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Let's take care of some business first of all. Our treasurer is not here, but our secretary is going to take care of the treasurer report as well, so we'll start with that.
So we have $3,871.65 in the bank account and $1,409.55 in PayPal. And for the secretary, there's a lot of upcoming events, so please read the upcoming events because there's signups for things. So just make sure when you get the newsletter, the minutes, that you're looking at that because there's a lot of signups for things in there. So.
You know, that information is available on the web page as well as the email that is sent out.
Yeah, well, most, if it's a club only sign up, it will only come out in the minutes because I don't want it out to the public for them to sign up for stuff because, you know, like the swarm line, I've been advertising out there to get our number out there and you wouldn't believe how many people are calling me going, hey, when you go collect those bees, can I have them? No.
Yeah. Go ahead, anything else?
Yeah, so I've been working on updating the webpage, like I said, so to the people who have sent me pictures, thank you. I'm gonna start going through more of those. If you still want to maybe have a picture considered to be on the website or being used on Facebook, please go ahead and email them to the club so I can get those taken care of. I've noticed, I've been passing along that CSBA is doing a bunch of sustainability webinars. Has anybody actually watched any of those or seen any of those? Yeah, just one? Okay. But they also, if you look at that last email that I sent out, they have started their own YouTube page. They're copying us. And those have been put on there. So if you're interested in one of those and you haven't done it, look for CSBA on YouTube, and at least 2 of those sustainability meetings have been posted up there. So.
And isn't the next Q&A on
Yeah, that was
March?
it.
Okay.
Yep, 2 weeks from tonight, there will be another Q&A, Zoom Q&A. So please jump in on that because Tracy and I don't like to talk to ourselves. We've done that a couple of times. So.
Meeting ID and.
It's posted on the calendar on the website, and I usually send out a reminder email. So as long as you're a member of the club, and I've been making sure that everybody's updated. Oh, that reminds me, We will be having to send the final list up for members to CSBA, so we need you, if you're interested in being part of that, we need to have you fully registered and paid no later than March 28th. After that, you can still register with us, but you won't be part of the CSBA, because we got to get them that list within the first couple weeks of April.
The CSBA is the State Beekeepers Association, so we're part of, when you sign up for this association, you get a free membership to the state association as well, and all the perks that go along with that. So it's like you double. So those, if you're not a member, and you'd like to become a member, just come and see our secretary afterwards, and she'll get you directed in the right place.
And
And just so you know, at the bottom of the meeting minutes, at the very, you have to scroll, is the Q&A link also. So it has the code and everything.
yeah, so we're trying to get out there. Like I said, it's on the calendar on the webpage. I usually send a reminder email out, try to send that out, 3 or 4 days in advance, and then she's got it on there. And then for those of you who don't know the CSBA, some of the perks are, they do 2 meetings a year. Usually they do the summer meeting, and at least that's a benefit for us, it's in Rifle. Then they usually have a winter meeting, and that can be somewhere on the Front Range. If you are ever on the Front Range, there are certain companies over there that give you a discount if you're CSBA. You can go to different vendors and stuff like that. And then this new thing that they're doing with the sustainability meetings, if you're a member, then we can get you the link so you can watch those meetings. So that's just a few of the things that are going on. And they seem to be trying. I mean, the new president joined our club, and she's been on Zoom a couple of times. So, they're definitely showing interest in the Western Slope, because really over here for big clubs, there's us and there's Durango, and then you got Delta, who's a little more informal. Yeah, but they're just, and that's it. Yeah, so. But at least they're trying to pay attention to
So,
us.
So the calendar, you just cover that too, is multi. Big spots here, so.
Calendar events, yeah, so the next. So there's something be coming up here pretty quick. Let's see, we've got the Honeybee Festival's on the 12th. Then Tracy is going to be doing a road show, which he'll announce here, coming up on the 19th. The box dipping, and we're gonna do the box dipping and the swap meet. That's gonna be on the 26th of April at the church, like it has been every year. So it's gonna be $1 a box again, or $1 an item again per members, $2 if you're not. And then, if you got something you wanna sell, we'll have the side set up where you can bring a table and do a swap meet. Let's not let me be the only person trying to get rid of some stuff this year. April 12th is the Honeybee Festival, and then April 19th will be Tracy's Roadshow, and then April 26th will be the box dipping. And then in May, we're gonna do another roadshow at Jason's J Road Apiary, where he's gonna demonstrate splits and queen rearing.
Jason's house, what?
It's Jason's J Road Yard.
Jan 24, we'll get you the
exact
location.
address.
That lunch is included on that one if you're a member, free lunch. So if nothing else, but free lunch.
So-
All that in the bag of chips?
Yeah, that's where it's, again, make sure that you are signing up on the link on the meeting minutes, so we know how many people to expect for lunch on that one. It will be on May 10th. And then, of course, then the CSBA, their summer meeting is June 13th and 14th in Rifle. Make sure you pre-register with them, so you can get involved with that.
And those that you need to sign up for, there will be a link right next to it. So I'll say, this is the sign up for Tracy's Roadshow. This is the sign up for Jason's queen rearing and hive spread splitting. So make sure you click on that to register. There's no register for the hive dipping. Oh, but there is for the CSBA.
So a autopsy of a beehive is not called an autopsy, it is called a
Necropsy.
necropsy. And he's gonna do a couple of them, so we're Nobody tracked, we haven't been in these, don't know what it is. You're gonna find out why it died, just as we do.
Couple of announcements first. On this coming Monday, we have the Delta Bee Club meeting. It's on Route 92, right there in Delta, at the Oddfellows. It's at 6:30. If you need directions or whatever, call me. Let me know, come up here, I'll give you directions. It's really easy to find. And as he was talking, my road show will be the 19th. It's a Saturday. It's about an hour drive from here, because my bees are in Eckerd. They're actually a little bit north of Eckerd. So you can, gauge how, if you want to drive that far or not. But when you sign up, I'll get an email list on there to ask for your email, and I'll send a group email with directions, what you need to bring, all that stuff. It's going to be geared towards new folks, showing you what brood looks like, what a good brood pattern looks like, what a bad brood pattern looks like. Queen cells.
of that, though.
Yeah, all kinds are perfect, because I get my queens from here, so they're all named perfect. We possibly will do a split or two also, so you'll see how to do that. Matter of fact, we'll just do one, even if I have to just put all of it back in one hive, I'll show you how to do a split. So that's covered too. Okay, now on to the necropsy. As he said, autopsy is actually a species-specific term for people. You don't autopsy anything but a person. All animals, it's a necropsy. Is this sugar?
I didn't know that they were dead.
Right. They were probably already dead,
Yep, they were.
because if it's getting warm enough that bees are moving around and they're hungry, this sugar won't be here. That's one of the ways you can tell if there's actually bees, if it's getting up in the 50s, because they'll come up here and they'll eat it if they're hungry. Not a problem. Just try not to make a mess with it, because the way it all pops.
Because there's sugar on there.
Yeah. And there's dead bees on top. I don't see any dead bees in this box. This one might be fun to get apart.
Jackets won't work.
It is really stuck. There we go. Okay, and what I usually do is pull this back and tilt it up, but
We're full of honey.
we're absolutely full of honey. We're gonna set it in something. When I tilt it back and I look to see if there's any dead bees up in here. And I don't see any bees. And if you're gonna tilt this up, hold on one second. If you're gonna tilt this up, make sure you pull it back a little bit before you tilt it up.
Sliding up.
Yeah, because if you tilt it up and it goes flying, you're not stopping that full box of honey. It's too heavy. It's gonna end up hitting the ground. And I don't see any bees in this one either. I see like 2 bees on this frame. Good luck getting it out of there.
I think whenever I took off the flow hive and there's so many bees that were in there and I shrunk them down and I didn't give them enough room that they might have just left. I thought.
Yeah. No, you got brood.
Yeah. I got brood, I got food. So you've got some of the broods got holes in the capping, so that's not good.
That is a very specific telltale sign of what happened.
Yes.
Say that again?
Go ahead.
There is pinholes in the brood, in the cappings.
There's a hole in the cappings. That means that
I'm gonna send it around so we can look at.
that died, but that baby died, and they're trying to get it out of there. It can be from foul brood, it can just be, can be from a lot of things, but it's usually from some kind of a disease if they're popping a hole in it.
You got a virus load,
Yeah,
that's what it is.
this one too. I got babies in here that are, and I'm seeing honey and I'm seeing pollen.
They didn't
So
starve.
they didn't starve. but there's holes in the,
So I have a question about some of the wax on the bottom is really dark. Is that, why is that?
That's just with, over time, it's travel stain.
Okay,
So the older a frame is, and the more it's used, it darkens up. So you, by looking at this, this frame is at least 3 years old, probably right in there, 3-4 years old. Looking at the, it's still in good shape. I mean, this one here, you can use again on, when you're, restarting a hive, either a nook, and it's in good shape. I mean, it's open. Space is still open, so. But again, what's that? No, I wouldn't,
Just leave it.
I wouldn't leave.
clean it up.
I wouldn't freeze this one, but clean the tops and the bottoms.
Right,
But the comb itself is good.
yeah,
Now, you can find any comb that looks like all of it is fairly new, so.
yeah,
You're not
it is.
gonna find any propolized cells, I don't
No.
think, in this one.
I'm not finding any of that. When your wax is dark like this, that's okay. Once you see the cell walls starting to get thick, in other words, the wax in between each cell that divides the cell, it'll start getting thick and really dark. That's the sign that you need to get rid of that frame. Usually, the industry standard is every 5 years, you're supposed to replace every one of those. Some people do more, some people don't ever do any. That's just up to you, but. See, there's one of these has got a big patch of brood on it.
Yeah.
Big patch of brood with lots of holes.
So, well, so I'm sending this around again, so just,
He holds cells out.
no, these will take care of that.
They'll clean it all up. Also, if you notice on some of these, it looks like there's like a tinge to them, like a gray tinge, you can kind of see. Sometimes that's just the wax, what's called a wax bloom, just like when it happens after you rendered it. It's not, people think it's, I don't know if you guys can see that, how it's kind of gray. That's just what they call wax bloom. It's not mold. People think it's mold, but it's not.
Now, you can have mold, but
Yeah,
this
but
is
that's not
this is
mold.
not. So, Dr. Tracy, what happened?
Honestly, I think they probably had a big night load and they left, or it just wasn't big enough. Enough of them died off, and she said there was yellow jackets coming and going, including that one right there. That's now half of a yellow jacket. That's still alive. So it could have just gotten weak enough that the yellow jackets were coming and going and just killed them all off.
But I would say it happened though not in the spring yellow jacket issue. They were just robbing afterwards because when did that brood die? That is gonna tell you the telltale, when that brood died. And you can, what you do is you pull one of the larvae out. Now, if it's still fairly milky white, if there's a little bit of white, or if it's even a darker brown, then it's within a month. If it's black, it's been a couple months and it's been frozen. So you can pull one of those, the brood that is dead, pull out a dead brood, and how much it's mummified will give you an idea how old that, when the hive died. But what happened is they absconded. And we call that when they leave the hive, when all the bees leave the hive because of a mite load. That's their last chance of surviving. And what they do is they leave with the hope of begging their way into another colony. And this will tell you too, how
Looking, that looked like, that was a chalk brood, but now it's just a one.
so also how dead these are is you can feel how decomposed, if they're still crispy, and these are crispy. So the bees were dead probably, I would say 2-3 months.
December.
Even December, even November,
Yeah, November, December.
right in there. And they at the last ditch, they left. No bees and that's very indicative. If there's no bees at all in the hive itself, you didn't have it, and if they are just holding on to the last ditch effort, you're gonna have bees that are dead with their head inside the cell and their tail sticking out. That is their last, and a little cluster, because the last one to stay is a queen. And that queen will be right in the middle of that little ball of bees surrounded by heater bees. And that when a bee has got its head in the comb, they are generating heat. And so they're trying to hang on. We didn't see any heater bees here. So chances are they all left long before it got real cold.
Yeah, another telltale sign is that whole box is completely full of honey, which means they left early enough that they didn't eat it up. They weren't eating on it through November, December, January, because it's just full. So, yeah, I would clean those up and
Yeah, this is good hive, useful. Now the honey, that box of honey, you can do one or two things. You can either spin it out if it hasn't crystallized, or you can use it to feed your next bees.
this one was only one box, so let's see what.
So there was two boxes, but the top one was all honey, so
Oh, okay.
we didn't grab that one.
There again, yeah, do it on it. There again, had a whole top box full of honey, so they didn't starve. Got a lot of bees on the bottom board here, a lot of bees.
There's
A lot of bees.
and the bees are a little bit more pliable. They're
Yeah.
not crispy, so these haven't been dead for, I would say, 3-4 weeks.
The other thing is that they're not, if they're eating honey, you'll have rows down here where they uncap it and they chew that wax off and makes a little wax. There'll be lines down here on the bottom board. So they weren't eating honey.
No.
And there is no bees in this one either.
There's a little patch right there. So. Might be a queen right there.
Man,
Well stuck, huh, Crazy?
yeah.
Well, a cold hive that's been propolized is the hardest thing to pull apart.
Trying to get, let me take this frame out so that I can try to get down that real gentle to try to preserve that little thing of bees, the little. This one out first.
No brood.
Nope, no brood.
How
There's
much
a-
brood
there's
would you
a really
expect to
tough
see
good
for
stuff.
a winter hive?
Bunch of brood up there.
Got holes in the cappings again?
Yep.
But there should be a little
A little what?
bit of brood all through the year.
Now, generally here, they'll stop
Stop
laying
completely.
like Thanksgiving time, Christmas
They'll
time.
be broodless in December, January, and starting into February. Into February, we start getting some warmer days. Queen will start laying.
Get this out.
How was the photo period? Directly correlated.
So they're just,
with,
there's nothing.
Yeah, there's like 20 bees, about another 20 fell.
And they do have heads in the, that's what I was hoping, send that around. Eater being ready.
See the queen. Let me look on this one.
He might have fell down.
Yeah, well, she- You might fall into Peter B. right.
Yeah, I got 3 or 4.
Okay.
You almost do this around, there's heater bees at the very top. So you can see what a heater bee is doing.
Bottom one, see that queen fell down.
Yeah.
I think that's.
This one goes backwards. I took the part.
Oh,
This part.
right, but, and that's why you have bees there.
Yeah, that's it.
Right now, we're. They were falling.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, but not from lack of food.
No.
Okay, so we had plenty of food because he said there was a full box up on top of here. We know they weren't eaten because there's not the cappings that they've tore off in rows down here. The bees are still kind of squishy, almost like they're alive. Like, you know, when they are, they're not crispy. So they didn't die so long ago. Oh, that's blood. How about that? I caught myself with something, but anyway. There's some of the cappings are perforated, so the cappings of the cell where the babies are. Yeah, he's pulling one out here to see if you can get one.
Even some.
I'm gonna go one.
Yeah, the larvae is fairly old. I would say the larvae is at least, again, 2 months old. So, but there is a number of bees here. There was just a little bit of a cluster, not much, but like a 50-cent size of a cluster at the top. So they didn't starve to death. There could have been late in the fall, early, middle of the winter is when this one died. And there's not a lot of bees. There's a number, there's probably a couple thousand bees is all. So that's not enough to sustain a colony. That's left. So I would say this one probably absconded as well. And it was probably a really good colony at one time. So what's that? That's just the ones that are left that could not fly when the rest of them absconded. So the last few ones, nurse bees that are young enough, they're not able to fly yet. They're the ones that stayed behind. So you always have a little cluster, stay behind bees. So that's normal death on the bottom board throughout the winter. That's normal death. That's not overwhelmingly a bunch of death. So that I could tell that that's probably not, they didn't die of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, but so about the same thing, about the same time. So
I'll leave this up here for you guys to come look at when you come up here after everything is done. But I have pulled bottom boards off and had this much dead bees, just all the way almost blocking the entrance, like that thick. Just depending on what they died of.
yeah, and that they probably, if they're that thick,
There's the pinholes right there.
some kind of pesticide, herbicide or the other something.
Okay, any questions? Dan? Tons. Did everybody get a frame to look at? Yes. Both of these, a lot of times you get in a hive, you can't actually tell why they died. I mean, sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. Sometimes they just die. This one, we're pretty certain because there's no bees in either one of these, that all the living bees flew away from them. Oh, yeah.
So Milo,
They had too many mites and so they absconded. This is why you need to treat for mites, because all those bees that were loaded with mites went everywhere to all your neighbors and any beehive within 5 miles and loaded them up with mites in the middle of the winter, or, you know, right going into winter. So if your neighbors didn't have a mite problem, they do now because all of your bees with mites on them went to their hive. Right now, the best way is oxalic acid. And there's a lot on that. It's not something we're going to cover today,
well, we're
but
gonna
it's basically what makes rhubarb tart. So it's a natural organic acid.
we'll talk about oxalic acid here in just a minute.
Okay. Well, you're
That's
good.
good. So yeah, this one died of mite load. There's no doubt when you see the bottom board, and I don't know about that one. That one absconded probably because of mite load, but pull that thing out.
Well, I'm afraid if I pull it out, it's gonna
Make a
put all
mess.
the bees on the ground. So Yeah, there's a bunch of, we're gonna have to back and forth.
Okay. Bring us sprung, okay, so.
Yeah.
Your bees are already foraging. One of the first sources of forage in the valley is globe willow. So, today was the last warm day for a while. Sorry. But you have globe willows and apricots are in full bloom. They're probably gonna be done. Cherries are starting. All of the, I was just out at an orchard in Palisade just earlier today with one of the farmers that I pollinate. And the peaches are swelling, so that's very good sign that we're gonna have an early spring. But bad for the peach growers and all the fruit farmers because we got some cold weather as well, and so. Anyway. How many have bees right now? You have bees right now, okay, and how many have done a inspection already? Okay, that's good. This is perfect timing then. You're watching them come in and out. And you see, I can tell more about what's going on inside that hive by the front door. What's happening in the front door? What's coming in? What do you see coming in? Pollen. What are the 4 things that the bees bring in? Yeah, those 4 things. So if you got this going on, and some of you did, then you have a ramped up queen, and because they only bring that kind of pollen in if they need that kind of protein. The pollen is a protein, the nectar is a carbohydrate. That's the 2 things that the worker bee needs to produce that royal jelly. They produce that, they call the hypopharyngeal gland in their head. And that is happening great guns right now. They are ramping up, yeah.
Just to be clear, in pollen and carbohydrate, it can be honey too, right?
Yeah,
In the wintertime, before this.
they can, yeah, they use that, they prefer nectar so much more so than their dehydrated honey. So, but they can, and you can stimulate them by putting on a pollen pad. And even beforehand, and some of you have done that, if you were here, how many of you went ahead and threw the old rocket fuel on and try to pump them up and
You can't find that sugar in.
and you're gonna have a mess on your hands unless you keep up on it. Because they're going great guns. Okay, so you have water, propolis, pollen, nectar, that's coming in. And all these 4 things are coming in. The main things coming in is the pollen and the nectar. Okay, so we're gonna do spring inspection. I would suggest if you haven't done a spring inspection yet, when's the next day that's gonna be 60 degrees or better? Somebody grab your weather app and tell me. Tomorrow's still 60?
64.
Tomorrow?
Oh, no, 62 tomorrow.
Monday.
Monday.
So if you're, that's kind of one of the keys. If it's a nice day and it's in the upper 50s and you don't have a lot of wind, and you still can get away with it, but you don't need to take a lot of time. What's the main temperature of the nest?
95.
Around 93 degrees average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but they got to keep it in. The winter nest is a little bit less, but right now they're trying to keep the larvae, the open larvae, at 93 degrees. So if you do an inspection and you take your time, you're probably going to chill a couple frames of brood, and you just lost how many cells in a frame? 5,000. That's 5,000 bees you just doomed. You just killed because you left them open too long. So that's why we say 60 degrees and better is optimal, and you don't take a lot of time. Just remember that. So what we're looking for when we're doing an inspection Again, we always want to find the queen, but you don't need to absolutely find the queen. You can find results of the queen, which is what? Eggs. If there is an egg, then you know that queen has been in that hive alive at least the last 3 days. On the 4th day, it hatches and becomes larvae. So this is a good brood pattern. Boy, if you have this, that's what you're looking for. That is a good looking brood pattern. This is atypical because you have that outer ring of honey, and then you have a little bit of bee bread next to that, and then that all is brood. That's a good looking frame. And that is a hygienic bee too. I can tell it's a hygienic because we have some open cells. That means the bees have been uncapping the cells that have issues with varroa. Isn't that good looking?
Yeah.
You like that? Well, I'm not gonna tell you if that's mine or not. So here you have different stages of larvae. Of course, you have the ones that are about ready to be capped. Okay, they're gonna cap these in just probably in a day or so. Here you have, you know, this is probably 4, 5, 6 day. This is at 4 or 5 day right there. If you're going to be doing some queen rearing, you want to graft larvae that's about right there. That is a 3, 4 day old. You see, it's in a C or a comma, and it's not touching. The ends are not touching it. As soon as they touch, that larva is too old to graft. So these are eggs, and eggs you can't graft. You got to wait for them to hatch and become larvae. Here's bee bread. So you want to see bee bread, that's good. All the pollen's coming in and they're stacking it in. You got some honey on the outside, you got some nice bee bread. That hive is gonna go bananas. If they put all that to work, you're gonna have a honey making machine. Okay, let's talk about some issues. Everybody has issues, right? Okay. In the wrong group, they got issues. Okay, here in the middle, and then in the green, that's all normal brood. Okay, that's all normal brood. It's nice and flat. And you like that? That's what we're looking for. But here up above in the blue, that's bumpy brood. What's that? That's your drone brood, and it's there. They got some issues here. And that drone brood is kind of all over the map. Not a great frame because it's still open over here. That is a frame that doesn't have plastic cell. That's one of the reasons why I use plastic cell. You don't have those issues with plastic cell. Here, these are what we call swarm cells. And there's a bunch of them right there. Those swarm cells are telling you something's about ready to happen in your colony. And if you see that, probably already too late. There's a few things I'm going to show you that you can do. None of you, unless you've already hyped your bees up with rocket fuel, driver, pollen patties, and complete the number of things that I talked about last month. You won't see this for another month, probably not till the end of April. But this year it could be a little bit earlier. Usually our big swarm season, April, May, right in there. So, but that first inspection, you're looking for a brood pattern. You're looking for eggs, larvae. And once you see eggs and larvae, button it back up. That's all you need. You don't have to find the queen. You know she's there. The longer that you leave that colony open, you're gonna chill all those. And if they get overly cold, you kill them. Now the cap brood can take a little bit more abuse, but anything open, when we're grafting, even in 90-degree weather, and I don't do air conditioning when I'm grafting. Either it's in our grafting shed, or I have something that I slide over my steering wheel in my truck, and I graft in my truck, and I leave it 90 degrees, and so I'm sweating. Reason why I don't want to chill that brood. And then the other thing, it can dry out. This time of year, it's not as important, but you can't leave it open. I would say If you're not done within that 20-minute time frame, then, and you haven't found what you need to find, button it up anyway. Cause these frames is without the lid, definitely don't take, once you find this frame, you've seen us taking frames out and setting them to the side. Take that frame out, look that you found brood, put it right back in the colony. Don't set it out. Don't set it to the side. That frame of larvae needs to go right back in. And so these down below, there is a difference in location. See, look, these are in the middle. Now, this is not absolute 100%, but this is majority of the time. When these cells that are vertical, everything else is horizontal. The only cells that you're gonna find that are vertical is a queen cell. Queen cell and every single one of these is a queen. And every one of those have ability to hatch. What normally happens, the first one to hatch, that virgin, as she hatches, she'll go and sting through the side of every single one of these other cells and kill them. Because if she doesn't, she knows it's gonna be war. Two virgin queens that hatch, they're gonna fight. Now, the reason why you have these these swarm cells, we call swarm cells, because this hive is getting ready to swarm. This hive is getting ready to take off. And so what they're doing and it could be that this hive is already swarmed. And now the first swarm is always with the old queen. The old queen goes with the first swarm. A colony can swarm multiple times. I've had one colony swarm 4 different times that I knew of. And so those swarm cells are to proliferate, to continue that colony. That's how they continue their genetics, and they're gonna allow that queen to hatch. That queen hatches. Now, the problem with that is the queen, as soon as she hatches, it takes her about a week to 10 days before she's able to fly. That virgin will be running around in that hive for about a week till her wing muscles are strengthened and she's able to fly, and she flies out to the drone congregation zone or the area, DCA, drone congregation area. And that's the virgin queens mate in midair, anywhere from 60 to 80 feet above the ground in the DCA, the drone congregation area. I did my master thesis on the DCA in this area. So I know where 7 of the DCAs are in our valley. They're there every year. The oldest DCA that happens every year is back in New England. They mapped it in 1680 is the first DCA, and it's still in the same place every year.
Is it like a microclimate, same geotech?
I use drone, a remote control drone with a pheromone, with a queen mandibular pheromone that you buy, place it in a pill bottle below the drone on a lanyard with the camera facing down on that pill bottle with the queen mandibular, and I fly until I start seeing drones come at the pill bottle. And I know I'm close, within a quarter mile. And so I will just start mapping that area until you find it. And you find it by, all of a sudden, there's hundreds of them. Now, it's not like not like a real tight, it is that DCA, and it's usually in the afternoon from 1 o'clock to 3, 4 o'clock, right? And there's only a few hours. And then there's probably 4,000 or 5,000. They're all flying in an area of about, a couple hundred yards.
What's the terrain look like? Is it like some type of terrain that's similar across every DCA in the United States? There has to be some similarity.
That was a great thought, and that's why I wanted to do it, because some people say it's got to be surrounded by trees with an open area in the middle, and that's because that's where they found them. And so but then there's DCAs that are above buildings in the middle of the city. And it's there every year. There's one in Boston that is literally downtown Boston above one of the city buildings. It's one of the, like a courthouse. It's there every year. So there's no rhyme or reason I have found that they generally like open areas. Generally, they generally don't go over like a building. But and here, the ones that I mapped here, they're, one is over a number of trees, one of them is over a apple orchard, actually. And the other ones are, ones surrounded by hayfields. One out in Mac is just out in there in the middle of sagebrush. But there's a number of, so why they choose it, I don't know, but they're there every year.
I saw them one time in the street in front of my house. And they were only like 10 to 20 feet high. They were just, I mean, they could have been hit by cars.
Now, the DCA is very specific. We'll get back to that in here. We'll ask questions here in a little bit. So now at the bottom of your comb, these are supersedure cells. Supersedure cell is different than swarm cell. Oftentimes the location of the frame. So here, the location of the frame down below. Now, that's not always the case. I've seen supersedure cells in the middle, and I've seen swarm cells on the bottom. But normally, later on in the year, the supersedure usually takes place later on in the year, and normally they're found at the bottom of the frame. That is, the queen went bad. You know, she broke bad, and so never mind. And then they had to make another queen. This one here is the oldest one out of the 5. You can tell by the age. It's got travel stain, even though it's shorter. This one will hatch first. She'll come, probably sting the rest of them. That one there is yet to be capped. So, if she is of right age and is doing okay, and she'll go out and make. Here's the issue, and the reason why I brought this up is because many of you are going to do splits this year, and you want to do what we call a walk-away split without purchasing a queen. And I got to give you kind of how this happens. You'll put in a frame of brood of open larvae, and you want not just open larvae, but you want to make sure that frame's got eggs. You say, well, I've seen a couple of larvae that's 3 days old. Isn't that perfect? Usually when you're doing splits, it takes them a day to figure out that they're queenless. And if you don't have eggs, then by the time they figure out they need to make a queen, they don't have any available resources to make it. That makes sense? So it's eggs that you're looking for when you're doing your splits. Got anything, just hop in there anytime. If you got something that, okay. Okay, before we get into oxalic acid, so we'll talk about splits here in a little bit. Okay, so this is a perfect time of year to treat your bees. They're just ramping up. You're probably all of those of you that have done spring inspection, wave at me again. How many of you had cap brood? How many had cap brood already? Okay. All of you that you didn't inspect, you had cap brood. How many frames? I mean, all of them, like.
I guess 8 and 10 in the bottom and 8 in the top.
So all the frames right across the board. Now you manipulated your hive though. So you put, and so what I told you last month, did it work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, I did a split with one, the beer split, Eric. The other one I did was standard. Okay. Split.
Already?
Okay.
Well, you, and this is the thing, you really didn't have to. You thought you did. Did you have any swarm cells?
No.
Okay, so that's the key. So you were building that honey making machine for a reason. All you needed to do is put on a suit.
Well, I did on them.
Okay, so the ones that are even the monsters, you got to keep an eye on them.
Right.
And so when you start seeing there's not enough warmth and there's no drones. That's how you know when you got trouble, is drones walking, not just drone comb, drones walking.
There was no one walking, there was a lot of going.
Drones walking, then a week after that, they'll start thinking about swarming. There's no drones, all you have is a honey making machine, that's all. So I should have clarified that, sorry. So but you got extra hives, so you can combine them again unless you bought queens. So if they're queenless, there's no way for them they'll draw out a queen, but there's no way they can mate, so put them back together. Because there's no drones out there, the DCA is empty.
True.
So I did.
There's a few that are happening, but very few. There's a few that drones in the valley that are starting, but there's very few. And it's only the big colonies, the huge colonies that was started early. How long from egg to hatch on a drone? 28 days. So 28 days, and so that's why we're saying, and after 28 days, that drone is not viable for at least a week, 10 days usually, until they are able to fly and to mate from hatch. So you're talking about a month and a half right in there. That's what I'm saying. As soon as they start walking, I have a week, and then the DCA will start to be populated. I'm just giving you, a calendar. Some days some years it's early. This year's early, but the DCA is not populated. And if in fact, you go back and they're probably trying to draw out queen cell because that's their last ditch effort. But I'd combine them and go after the honey. The spring honey is the best in the valley. It's the clearest. Spring honey that I collected 5 years ago hasn't crystallized yet.
Well, I've got two little things right there with that, plus mine and.
Okay, yeah, the apricots are going. So who else? Sarah, what'd you have? How many frames of brood? Yeah, she manipulated hers too. She put the rocket fuel and everything. Who just didn't do anything except for a little bit of winter feeding, and you did a spring inspection already. Yeah, doctor. Yeah, that's normal. So the different hives, one had 3, another one the big one had 6. No, we're saying, and that was all capped brood?
No, eggs.
Eggs, okay, larvae. Did you have any frames that were capped yet?
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2. You should be right in there. Everybody should have a overwintered hive that with approximately 20,000 bees, you'll have 1 or 2 frames right now of capped. And then a lot of open larvae. Another 2, 3 frames, 4 frames, because we had really warm days. Really warm days translates into boatload of resources, and the bees are ramping up. Yeah.
I had one night, I had a whole bunch of bees and no eggs and larvae and nothing. They had a bunch of bees. So a lot of bees, it just made it through.
That oftentimes that's what happens is that they'll overwinter just fine. It comes time to ramp up, and that queen now is no longer viable. They overwintered her, but now it's time to start laying eggs. So what I would do is take a frame of eggs from one of those other hives, put it in that hive, and see if they're draw out a queen cell. If they draw out a queen cell, they're queenless. If they don't, they still have a queen, and they're protecting her still. So they believe that she's still viable. But if you drop in a frame of eggs, did you see the queen or no?
I looked, it's fine.
Okay, so she very well could be there. They could have superseded her already, and they're hopeless right now without a frame of eggs. That's the best way to do. Drop in a frame of eggs, and you'll know within 3 days if they're drawing that out. Then you'll know in a day they'll start drawing out queen cell.
You combine them with another one.
Okay.
I did do some mixed infections. Thinking it would be a first bee that could raise.
The overwintered bees are still able to do that, because so you think about it, they overwinter, that they still have that genetic, that causes them to go into the winter and they're able to turn on that, the pharyngeal gland. So that's,
Already combined.
Yeah. well, that's, no, it's good. That's good. That's a good way to do it too. That's even easier. To keep them from fighting, if you're gonna, and those of you that have done that and say, oh, I've got way too many bees right now, I want to just combine them. Newspaper between the two, and or you can get, this is another trade secret, one of the best ways to kill that queen mandibular pheromone is tea tree oil. So you get tea tree oil, mix a little bit of sugar water, don't spray it on the brood nest, spray it around the perimeter, on top, or take a shop towel, a blue shop towel, and saturate that and set it on top. Just make sure it's not dripping down. And that will take out that queen mandibular pheromone, and then you can add whatever you want to them, and they're gonna be happy because nobody can tell who smells like what.
Another trick to doing that, getting them all smell the same, is get a squirt bottle with regular 1-to-1 sugar water. With a little, you can use lemongrass, or I like to use Honeybee Healthy and just mist the bees.
Yep.
They all start cleaning each other off, and after they've all licked each other off and got all cleaned up, they all smell the same. And they don't mind each other.
They're all friends.
Yep.
So, to those of you that, so if you haven't done, an inspection, a spring inspection, try to do one to know where you're at. Try to understand where you're at. It's a perfect time, the best time to do oxalic acid treatment. And right now, vaporization is good because you have 1 or 2 frames of brood. You don't have like 5 or 6 frames of brood. But if you want to do the extended oxalic with the sponges, that you should get them on right away. Right, this next inspection, you should be putting the oxalic acid sponges on there, and that is the best oxalic acid on the market for beekeepers is out of the Florida laboratories. And so that one there is the best one on the market. It's the purest. And it's also probably one of the most expensive. I don't know if it's organic.
It is itself, because like I said, it's mostly made out of rhubarb, but how they process it would be whether it's organic. They might have added something to it to extract the oxalic acid out of the rest of everything. I don't know how they process it.
We buy it in the barrel, so it's a little bit cheaper for me, but anyway, so this is a 5-gallon bucket and a little bit cheaper if you're gonna buy, but most of you, just this 1 pound or the smaller packages, 8-pound or 1-pounders. And then vegetable glycerin. And all vegetable glycerin is not created equal. You want food grade, USDA food grade vegetable glycerin. Since beekeepers started doing this, there's a lot of Chinese that have been throwing vegetable glycerin on the market. Make sure it's food grade, 100% natural. And that's important.
The other grade is called cosmetic grade. And that's what you don't want. You want.
Swedish sponges is the other component. All Swedish sponges are not created equal. Wet Tex. Wet Tex is what you want. And the reason why is this one, the rest of them will virtually disintegrate. They just fall apart. This one here will be there 6 months later.
About 100 different ways of spelling that. It's WETTEX. Amazon's got them all day long.
And you'll cut this into 4 strips. Okay. It's 1-to-1 is the ratio by volume. So 1 cup of glycerin to 1 cup of oxalic acid. Heat it in a pan. Make sure you use your wife's best pan. No? Now you tell me, okay? Basically, this will be your oxalic acid pan for the rest of its life because it'll stain it. It basically, yeah, okay.
I use the Pyrex dish.
Yeah, it's just whatever you have to heat it. And, but the key is keep it under 170. Above 170, a chemical reaction takes place, becomes toxic to you and to the bees. So keep it under 170. And you won't have to really get to 160 like this because it emulsifies before then. Go ahead.
I just made up about 80 of these towels this week. And first thing is, it will start to emulsify down in the 130 range. Keep it down in 130, 140 range. That's good to know. Second of all, everybody always wants to know, well, how much goo do I need to make up for how many towels? Okay. 1 cup of vegetable glycerin, 1 cup of oxalic acid will make 10 towels. It's a good even ratio. I just worked it out when I did it on Monday. So that'll tell you how much stuff to make up.
You need
So
four
they're good
of
and
those
so-
strips per hive.
Right,
10 towels before they're cut up.
right,
No.
right. 10 whole towels.
Okay.
And then you cut those in quarters and then.
But
that's
40
the-
you wanna
strips.
cut them before you put the oxalic
Definitely.
acid on.
Definitely. I have a question for you.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of videos online recently where they're only cutting the towel in half. They're not
Yeah.
cutting it in fourths.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about
Okay.
that and what Randy Oliver and myself, we've seen a huge difference in what we do. So this is at Randy's house. I took this at Randy Oliver's house there. And we were trying different matrices. So here are the different matrices we were using. This is maximizer pads. This is the little round pads for cosmetic, yep. And then this was cotton from like a t-shirt material. And then here is the Swedish sponges. This was about 5 years ago and none of these worked. There are issues with all of them. So we always go back to, we're always trying different beekeepers are always trying to do something better, faster, easier, cheaper, right? But it didn't work. So we always end up going back to the Wet Tex Swedish sponge. Here is the layout. That is where you, not vertical on the sides, not parallel, it's perpendicular right here above the brood nest. And the reason why we gap them like that is because the nurse bees are able to crawl up between. You want them to access that pad. You want them to access the sponges by climbing up over the top, because that's how they disperse the oxalic acid over their body. How oxalic acid works, it eviscerates the impodium of the mite, the feet. Oxalic acid under microscope, especially vaporization, looks like shards of glass, like razor blades. And what that does is just destroys the impodium. It's kind of like, a mite has like suction cups on their feet. And that's what gives them the ability, the leverage to be able to drive their beak into the body of the bee. And if they aren't able to do that, they're unable to attach themselves and they just, they die of starvation.
Placements of these pads, you want it between your 2 larges if you have larges. You have 1 large box, put those on,
Yes.
and then your other one on top. If you're running mediums, this is, most of the time, it's gonna end up between your first and second box. But as you take it apart, where is your brood? If your brood is in the second and third box, then you put it up, between those 2. You want to get that in the middle of the brood's nest is where you want it.
So if you're running double deeps, like here, you're gonna put them between, right here. Above the bottom one, below the top. That's right in the center of the brood nest, yeah.
When that first one I was at, and they talked about using the cardboard. And then you fold them over the frames. That's why you become cardboard in that one item mine.
Yeah.
California, was that they will not build the brood underneath those strips that are hanging below, hanging between the frames. And those same, those cardboard strips are coming out with now, or impregnated with the silic acid. It's a hindering.
What's the name of the company that does that? Yeah,
New company that's
isn't it out of Argentina or something?
Yeah.
Avax, I think.
eight of that, yeah,
Anyway, and it's expensive,
yeah.
And you have to use more pads than you do for this. You have to use,
8, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
well, you
What
have
I
to use
ended up
one
doing
for
is
every
taking
2.5.
Cardboard and splitting and using them like the sponges to see if they can do the same thing and actually follow the same.
What,
Pretty much, but the sponges were better.
the efficacy of these is that the sponges maintain the moisture level, and 3 months later, they're still working. And that's, again, that's when we go back to the wet tanks. There's some oxalic, or there's some Swedish sponges that are a lot thinner and they don't absorb as much oxalic acid, and so they don't last as long. But these, they're good for 90 days. And unless you have a hygienic hive that will chew them out, and there's only a few of ours out of 2,000 that are actually chewing them out. Most of them will propolize around the edges. And that's okay, as long as they're able to still travel over the top. And as they travel over the top, then that's how the efficacy of the sponge works.
Does anybody put rhubarb plants in front of the doors of the beehive as business?
I've heard a lot of rhubarb stories, yeah. And basically it comes down to this, and if you mix it with strawberry, they make good pie.
The rhubarb does not have enough oxalic concentration in it to hurt rural mud.
And it's also the delivery of the matrix.
When I did actually. Like. My. So that was.
Yeah.
So you look at forecasting. To actually be more, you want to go that route. Well, the problem is we got Oleg, which is the oxalic acid, but we don't over here. You're like steaming metal. Particularly.
What about nitrogenous for?
That is everything.
We'll get questions later if you have.
All right.
Too many rabbit holes. Okay. Some brood diseases. If you see this, call me because I need to know where you're at. Move away. I will go over this next month and talk about, you won't see any of this. If you have any of this right now, your bees are dead. Because they would not be able to handle any of the different brood diseases. So anyway, that's it. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Many bees, yeah. As needed, that's a good question, thank you. So if there is a hive that is very hygienic, a hygienic hive means they're meticulous when it comes to cleaning. Their bottom boards is spotless when you open them up. And that's what you want. You're wanting a hygienic, and we breed for hygienics. So a very hygienic hive will actually strip those pads out. And so then you're gonna have to replace them. And it might be in a month. And during your inspections, if you end up tearing one, you're scraping them off, because when you're doing an inspection, it's above the bottom box and you're moving them off so you can pull out frames to do an inspection. And so if you're tearing them, breaking them apart, normally I just toss them. And if they tear, usually within a month, the first month and a half, they don't have them propolized down very much and they're easy to move. But it seems like when the beginning of late spring, early summer, when they're able to gather more propolis, then there's numbers. There's a lot of numbers, they start propolizing those sponges, and so then it's very difficult to scrape them off without destroying them. But I do that, and then I'll throw another one on. You just replace them. And if they're dried out, then yeah, I'll replace them. Because there's we'll go back to that one right there. Right here, when you're pouring this, and you notice these are up on its edge. And that's what you want to do. Because it's easy to saturate all the sponges when they're up on its edge. And you want to make sure that your oxalic acid mixture is totally saturating the sponge. You'll pull these apart, and if there's dry spots in the middle, you don't have enough. You don't have enough oxalic acid mixture. So you gotta put enough on there so it totally saturates completely all the way through. Then I'll take some tongs. Make sure if you're doing this, and now we have a license to do it, the FDA said beekeepers can use oxalic acid in any form as much as they want, as long as you are not selling, okay? If you're just doing it yourself and you're not a commercial enterprise selling this as a treatment, you got a license to do this yourself now. About time. New Zealand's been there for almost 10 years doing this. So, couple of things that you want, rubber gloves. Nothing else, at least the nitrate. And then some kind of eye protection. And it's real important to have some baking soda and water right there. Baking soda instantly neutralizes the acid. So if you splash some in your eyes or something like if you have that baking soda mixture with the water, in other words, it's going to be very painful. That sounds like maybe some experience.
Experience there. You can also use that same baking soda water to clean off all of your tools.
Can you make a big batch of this and freeze it, something like that, put the bag in and freeze it, you know?
So I've never froze it, but we'll have these sponges. We make up a bunch and then we just have them in the trucks. We have them in all of our trucks. So when we're doing what we found is that over time, it does go back to a crystallization form. And so it becomes a brick. All you have to do is just heat that up. You warm that up a little bit in that baggie. We just use Ziploc bags. Some people put them in like a Rubbermaid container. Tupperware, yeah. So if you want to re-emulsify that or so it's pliable, it doesn't have to be wet. But what happens is if it's not, because it becomes a brick and it's all solid and then they stick together.
I was thinking about making a big batch and like, you know, put them in baggies, freeze them. And then
I don't know if you'd have to freeze it. I've never frozen, but still, the efficacy is still there.
I wouldn't think it hurt it, right?
I don't know what that would do.
I don't know if freezing would, I think it would, depends on the vegetable glycerin. It's not gonna hurt the oxalic acid, but the vegetable glycerin side of that, I don't know how that would, I don't know, but this, you know. So you're gonna do a scientific experiment, see if it's still efficacious and then let me know, okay? So it totally ruined it in my hive crater, okay? Somebody else had a question or? Yeah.
You're basically keeping these strips in there constantly.
Yeah.
One goes back and replace it right away.
We do now. We didn't beforehand because we were alternating treatments. We're alternating treatments between oxalic acid, formic, we were using formic, and then we used thymol, those three, because they're all natural. And we got away from the synthetic miticides 5-6 years ago now. Basically because the mites are gaining resistance to all the synthetic miticides. Amitraz is the big one. Fluvonac was the first one that we used back in the late 90s. And that was, and they, mid-90s, actually, Fluvonac was first one. And it worked great. It knocked the snot out of the mites until the mites became resistant. And so we're seeing that happen in Amitraz too, which is, what is the market? What is the manufacturer product of Amitraz? It's a Apivar. Apigard, I think is,
We got scored.
yeah, I don't remember. But
We all start with A.
everybody has AB in it. Yippee-yi-yi. So anyway, that is, and after you, goggles, gloves, some people even use a chemical mask. And because it's you do this outside if you can. I have a turkey fryer that I use. And if you do it inside, make sure you're well ventilated, get a fan going because that fumes will knock you back a little bit. And unless you got a mic problem, and then just let it roll. So no, if you got a bunch of bees, put a zooper on. That's what we're after. If you have Okay, this is the 7-10 rule. We give you the 7-10 rule. Beekeeping. You have 7 out of 10 frames full, time to put another box on, whatever it is. If you did a split and the small split and you only had like 3 or 4 frames of bees, and you're wondering when to put the next brood box on, when that is at least 7 frames full, then it's time to put another box on. If you have, out of those 2 deeps, you got 14 frames, and they're full, then it's time, then go ahead and put a super on. And those, because they're gonna start going up. The other thing during the spring, the next thing you need to think about, now there's different comments about this one and different thoughts about this, I'm gonna get them to you, so you do your own research on this, is spring swapping brood chambers. Right now, most of your bees are gonna be in the top. Okay? So what we want, that, and it's always easier for a bee to go up because of the heat. The heat will, they'll be able to move up easier, cover the brood, so on and so forth. So you're gonna help them out by taking this brood box, swapping it and putting it on the bottom goes to the top. So it's boom, that's a spring swap. We do that across the board. Yeah. Now's the time to do it. If your top box is full, now if you're still in the bottom and all you have on the top is honey, you need to give them some room. You like both of these, especially this one, that top box was just wall to wall honey. And so they're not gonna, they got nectar coming in. What they need is room. Room to start empty combs so they can start brooding. And so you're gonna have to take, and well, all I have is empty frames. I don't have any. Go in and extract them. You gotta dig out your honey extractor and extract those frames. Get drawn comb is what they need, and they need room. So if you only have like one brood box, this top one's full of honey, they're still down below. The reason why they haven't come up is because there's nowhere for them to come up. You need to give them some room. You need to make some room. There's a number of ways to do that. Yeah.
Will these move honey into a super
Yeah,
from brood box?
they will. Takes them a while.
Super on top.
Yeah, they will. But a lot of times, and I've seen them do this. This was full of honey. And I was thinking, well, I'm gonna give them some room. I'll put that honey super up there. You know what they did? They just bypassed this one and started brooding in the honey super. Because they needed to brood right now. I've had that happen a number of times. And so, if you don't wanna, if you got enough equipment, and that's the thing, we got a lot of new beekeepers, so you don't have a lot of equipment, all you have some blank frames, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna do that? And I don't, time is so important. Work a job, and you're only beekeeping on the weekends, and don't have time to do the extraction. It's better to have empty blanks than nothing at all. So at least they'll start working on that. If you can't, so you pull out some of those honey frames, put in some blanks, and they'll start drawing them out and making room.
Have our hives wrapped
Mhm.
right now, and it gets up to like 70 during the days, and it's like 19 or 20 in the morning.
Yeah.
So
So my rule for that's what I've seen, because again, what is the mean temperature of the nest that they need to maintain? So
don't worry about it.
I wait until the bottom temperature is at least stays above 40. So the low stays above 40. And then I will take the wrapping off.
I was wondering, maybe you take that during the day.
No, it's basically you're helping your bees by keeping that insulation on them, especially at night. Anything below 40, they begin to cluster tightly. They'll cluster about 45, even 50 degrees at night, they'll cluster, but it's not a tight cluster. Below 40, that ball of bees gets real tight.
Oh,
And if they have no outside insulation, then they're gonna cluster even tighter sooner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so what I'm doing is I'm giving them the help that they need to stay warm at night.
That can be super cold and
And it depends on where you're at.
Back.
The temperature varies, even 10 degrees, different places in the valley. Palisade near Quebec Canyon is 10 degrees warmer than East Orchard Mesa. That's why the peaches will make it in Palisade and they won't make it in East Orchard Mesa because of the temperature difference. That 10 degrees is everything. So that's kind of what I tell people is that 40 degree, when the bottom temperature, the low stays above, it doesn't drop below. And there's gonna be a few days it maybe drops and that's okay. But that's kind of the rule of thumb that will help the bees. Now,
okay.
some of you didn't wrap them at all. There's nothing around them and so it doesn't really matter, right? I would right now open it to, we have a reducer here.
Right here.
We have one right here.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
You got her on the.
Oh, okay. So you're probably on the small one right now, right? Now go ahead and go to the larger one, at least that's size. It's double. I run 4-inch openings all year round, so it doesn't, and I don't see any difference. A lot of people do, and it does help. It does help with your temperature and temperature regulation, yeah. Put out a yellow jacket trap. Now, a strong hive will be able to take care of any yellow jacket issues. But if you got just a weak hive that's just barely hanging on, yeah, just leave it small. That helps them guard that small entrance. But right now is the best time to trap yellow jackets. If you don't have a yellow jacket trap, and I've seen this year's bad. This year's gonna be a bad yellow jacket year. So get your traps out.
Why do you say that means?
What?
Why do you say that?
Because I see a lot of yellow jackets. Yes, oxalic vaporization is good. All the phoretic mites will drop and that's, you want to get a jump on it, that's good. And I do that as well as the sponges.
So you can do both at the same time.
Yeah. Yep,
So you could do the sponges and the vapor.
Yep.
on high.
yep. Oh, yeah. Yep, the vaporization is good for about 2 days is all. In 2 days, and then it's not gonna bother them to have sponges and then vape them. We do that. When they land in California in December, the first thing we do is vaporization. And then we hit them again in the spring. We hit them before they go in the almonds. And then they have sponges on the whole time. So what we're doing is we're trying to knock down the phoretic mites. And then the phoretic mites, that is the ones that are not encapsulated in the foam. And so that's the thing about oxalic acid vaporization, does not penetrate the encapsulated brood. And so that's and the sponges don't either. But what happens is as they travel over those sponges, it's just the extended. It's not that if you have a high mite load, oxalic acid sponges won't knock down that high mite load quickly. It's over time. So it's good. If you have a high mite load right now, you need to do a vaporization or some other miticide like formic. Formic is good this time of year because your temperatures aren't just outrageous. The problem with formic acid, you kill the queen because of anything over 80, they'll supersede the queen. And I think it's because that formic acid on high temps, anything above 80, especially in the 90, you can just basically guarantee they're gonna kill the queen. I think it has to do with that oxalic acid messes with the queen mandibular pheromone. And that's, and I'm not alone in that. There are many believe that that's why they supersede the queen. And so
Has anybody out there ever smelled formic acid strips? They smell just like ammonia. And so the prevailing theory is they can't smell anything. And then they see a queen and they don't think it's their queen, so they kill it.
or our queen's got a problem now because we can't snoop one.
Clone is blocking your natural pheromone thing, right? It's just the same principle. It's the reason why Maya and I use main properties in the orchard, because it's just spurring the twig board, crown board mating.
Yeah, that's, but formic acid this time of year is efficacious
Is there one machine better than the other machines?
of oxalic acid vaporization.
Yes, sir.
The one that works the best is the cheapest.
Very
And I know there's a number of, I use ProVap, and then we went to the Bazooka this year, so as we commercialized. It's $3,000 machine, but ProVap has been on the market the longest. And the battery operated ProVap it works good. You've used it, the one that you use, that's probably the best one on the market with the plunger on top. Yeah, there's a number of, the ProVap used to have the caps and they were a pain in the butt, but the plunger, that's the go-to now, so. And they're about $500, maybe a little under 500 now. So that's, it's an investment. The old wand in the front door, that's not so great, but if that's all you got, it's better than nothing.
So Ralph has a question. It says, ask Jason if he subscribes to the powder sugar treatment. Coating the frames with powder sugar is a quick mite treatment. I saw online that powder sugar can knock off up to 1/3 of the mites in a hive almost immediately. You ever heard anything about that?
Powdered sugar shake or just?
No, powdered sugar on the bees itself, it
It's
sounds like.
drowning the whole entire hive with powdered sugar?
Yeah, but
Yeah. I know the people that have done sugar shakes and here's what I found is you go to scientificbeekeeping.org and Randy talks about that. He said after they did their sugar shake, he took that same bunch of bees and did a mite wash, alcohol mite wash, and picked up another 1/3 of mites. So as well as what damage does it do to the bees? And that's one thing you gotta remember is you gotta shake them hard to actually release the mites. Yeah.
So actually, it's not the sugar shake they're talking about, it's like UV inspection, you sprinkle the actual top with powdered sugar.
Okay.
I've done this too, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Because where does the mice live? It doesn't live on the back, it lives on the fronts. So
Yeah,
So
so
the
that's,
theory is, they go, they clean, they keep the mice off. It doesn't work because the mice are on the front, not on the back. So that's really what they're trying.
I
to
see.
do.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. So there are so many things on here's scientific method is this. If you can do, when you do your scientific testing or your scientific process, you have to have not just the one thing that you're doing, such as sugar shake, but you have to have another alternative method. And then you need a control where you're doing nothing. And then you need to do that on a number of hives, at least, I would say 20 per hive. So 60 hives, you're doing that. And then after your results, can you replicate the same results? That's scientific method. And I don't think anybody has done that with scientific method.
They haven't doing the sugar on them. They take a frame out, put it this way and sprinkle sugar on it on every frame in the whole hive. And really all it does is it promotes grooming. They all have to clean all that up. And doing it, some of the mites do get knocked off. It does do some mite control. The problem is, first of all, it's very, very labor intensive. You have to take every single frame out and do it. Whatever little bit of powdered sugar goes down into the whatever open brood, that gets killed. They'll kill that brood. So you just killed some brood, and it doesn't work very effectively. It's only about a third as effective as like an oxalic fog. So you have to do it 3 times just to get one oxalic fog as far as efficacy. So it's a whole lot of work, and it's not, like I said, it's not very reproducible. Some people get good results. Most people don't get hardly any results. So it does actually help, but very little. Fungal treatment. I've never put any funguses on my bees. But what is it? I've never even heard of it.
The same time, apparently, there's an opportunity to do it.
Hmm,
We're dealing with Asians,
yeah,
and
there's,
certain stuff, not.
there's about 20 or 30 different people that are doing different things, starting the scientific process of doing funguses and mycelia and all kinds of stuff. It's just not proven out. This oxalic acid, they've been doing oxalic acid in England for like 30 years. And they know the mites don't build up a resistance. It is a natural thing. So it's kind of like people are gonna do what works, you know? Huh? Well, you shouldn't, you won't, there is oxalic acid in regular honey. Even if you never treat your hive, there's oxalic acid in your honey.
And what they have
It's a
shown,
natural compound. It's
and
every,
why the FDA has allowed us to use it without regulation is because there is no amount of oxalic acid you can pour on your hive that's gonna raise the amount of oxalic acid in your honey. Even, I think it was like 0.001 parts per million. So it's impossible. And that's why they've released that, the control. So it's already in your body.
yeah, I mean,
Unless
it's
you-
it's
if you
in
have-
rhubarb and you eat it, and you eat rhubarb. There's oxalic acid, there's
a number
oxalic
of
acid in
vegetables.
almonds and in cashews and all kinds of stuff. It's in pretty much any plant food.
Okay, any other questions on what we were talking about? Yeah. We don't have time for rabbit holes, but what we've been talking about, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
It wasn't a ton, they're still doing well.
Yes.
How concerned?
so what that is you have, your bees are reducing the humidity, and humidity is collecting in water. So it needs more ventilation. So do you have like a quilt board on top, or what type, just a regular lid? Okay, so that will dry out, and especially, the great thing about western Colorado is the relative humidity is low. Is 12% or less. It doesn't. If you would elevate, yeah, so it's not sitting flat, that will help. And elevate back towards the front. So if the water's running, it has a place to run out the door. If you elevate the front, well, it runs down the back and just sits in the back of the bottom board. The front of the bottom board, it'll run out the front. No, if the bees, they'll take care of it. They'll have that. We got, back, if you went back in, a couple of nice days that we've had, it's already drying up. And many times, if you have old comb, so you got this older dark foam, that'll also travel through your colony. So this is not bad, but if you got any really black foam, and if the cell is propolised, if you have individual cells, so they're starting to propolis down here over this. The reason why they propolis a cell is because there's something in that cell that is poison. It's usually pollen that they brought back that has pesticides, herbicides, fungicides on it. And so they'll propolis over that cell. And they're telling you there's poison. They're showing you where it is. And so that's a frame that you need to just take out and remove altogether. You've heard of the colony collapse that is taking place, that up to 70% of Apis mellifera has died this year. 90% of every honeybee in America right now is in California. You all know that, don't you? Nod your head, yes, I just told you. And so, and that's because all the commercial, we're pollinating the almond crop. And then we go into the cherries, some go to apples and different pears, and then some go into melons. But most of us are there, all of us are there. Vast majority of commercial guys across from Florida, New York, all the way across the United States, all got our bees in California, pollinating the almonds. 70% lost this year.
In California.
All the bees in America.
It didn't matter if they like got there or not, just like across the board.
Okay, they're all there, and the count is, we get a count of how many How many orchards have not been pollinated? There's an almond board as well as the beekeepers, the Professional Beekeepers Association. 70% loss this year. Okay, so if you, those of you that haven't heard that, so that's, it is not just it's not just the viruses that we're dealing with. There's 5 viruses that are found in your colony, pretty much. 2 of them for sure that your bees are dealing with across the board. And that's deformed wing virus and acute paralytic acute virus, and that is across the board. So there's 5 of them all together. That's not, and then mite load, that's a problem too. There is a couple of things that are out there that we're looking at that are contributing besides the pesticide, the fungicide, the herbicides, that all builds up in the comb. That's why I'm saying the guys that I work with, and I work with some guys, one commercial beekeeper is 10,000. He runs 10,000 colonies. He lost 90%. And their outfit took a hard hit. So then that comes to the next thing. Those of you that have signed up for Nooks, I will run out this year because I got a lot of commercial guys that are on me. I only lost 20%. So me and a partner are doing good, and but they're on me about, hey, we need bees. So I told them I'm going to get the club first, and then we'll go from there. So if you've signed up, let me know. I need a payment by the end of this month, if you can. But if you can't, let me know, and then I'll work with you. But bees, we'll be dropping. We'll have bees back in the valley. First load comes back. First semi comes back in a couple of weeks, and then second week of April, I think. So, and then so we should have your Nooks ready by the end of April this year. That early should be. It'll be good for you. Sometimes we bump it into May. Okay. Yep. Queens will be. I can if you've ordered queens, come talk to me afterwards. Because some of you I can have them even earlier. The early ones are Kana, they're Hawaiian. There's no queens yet for American. U.S. queen, mainland, California, Florida, Texas. They don't have any yet, but they will in a couple weeks.
What's the leading theory?
A what?
What's the leading theory of the die-off?
There is a. And I want to be careful because there's some people that are imhans. We're looking at something similar to European foul brood. It's not full blown foul brood, but it has some traits of European, not American. And that's across the United States. So that's not indicative of just one area. This is a colony collapse across the United States. So it's not something that, hey, it's this or that. And I know a lot of natural guys say it's the commercial guys that are doing it. It's commercial guys that are building bees that are mite resistant. Our genetics are primarily built for mite resistant. And so we don't have to have treatment. My outfit is about 40% mite resistant without treatment because of genetics. And I only had 20% loss. And I'm still dealing with the same viruses, the same things everybody else is. So what I'm telling you is that we are pushing for very specific things. That's the answer. The answer isn't new miticide. The answer is mite resistant bees that take care of the mites on their own. That's what we're after with genetics. Would you agree with that?
I'm a brand new farmer.
Okay.
I've only done sustainable agriculture program. I have no relevant understanding. So like, I'm just assistant thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've thrown out some questions there. I thought maybe you'd been a beekeeper for a while. We've been doing this since the early 80s. I work with 5th generation beekeepers.
My assessment is that like, as I do chickens, right? So I don't do I don't do jumbos.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so we got something going.
That's good. A lot of beekeepers are chicken farmers too.
Yeah, there's essentially been a focus on like one, in chickens, there's been a focus on going to one particular genetics, right? And then so people have focused on that, but then that particular genetic is brought so far into size as opposed to like a holistic balance, which is seems like what you're getting after, that they become so weak that like I accidentally overfed one batch of chickens with this German by Cornish cross, and they ate themselves into a heart attack. So I had like 50% loss because they were so unstabilized.
Yeah.
Whereas you seem to be building genetics of bees that are like can withstand multiple styles of
Right.
challenge.
Well, one of the problems is when you, anything with genetics like that, you tweak this one to try to get more mite resistance. Well, then it takes away from your honey
Yeah.
production, or they don't overwinter. So you have to keep it balanced, and that's why it's taking so long to get a mite resistant bee.
Yeah.
Because
We could all have mite resistant bees tomorrow, but they would be Africanized. Africanized bees that don't have any problems with mites, Africanized bees, and they make a boatload of honey, but you can't get out of your truck.
One night, I opened the box and those bees are like on me. They're like,
Yeah, they're,
my, hit my screen, I mean, they're just, the other ones I can open, not a problem.
so what you wanna do, if you wanna, and this is a good question, here's somebody that has a hot hive. A hive that anybody that dealt with that, you know exactly. The answer is, or there's two answers, either requeen it. When you requeen it though, it's gonna take at least 2 to 3 months for that to calm down, because you have in the capacity, all the bees that are in that hive are of that old genetic. And so for them, bees will live about a month and a half. Okay, and so you have all the brood that old queen has done. So that brood's 21 days plus another month and a half. So before it really calms down. So you can introduce a new queen. You can't, here's the problem about killing that queen and letting them raise their own queen. They're gonna raise their queen, their own queen from the old genetics. So you're in the same place. Half of the allele comes from the drone. So you might get something a little calmer, but what you really want is just a mated queen. You buy a mated queen already and then introduce her. Do that method that Tracy was talking about, hose them down with sugar water and kill that pheromone so they'll accept that new queen. In other words, they won't accept it.
What about the old queen?
Oh, so there's a couple,
One
there's.
had a green dot and another one didn't.
Okay, so a way to find that queen, you can, sometimes them ornery ones are skitty. So do you have a queen excluder? Okay, so you take 2 empty boxes. You take 2 empty boxes, put a queen excluder in the middle. Take all the frames off in this top empty box. The bees will drop down underneath and the queen will be stopped by that excluder.
So sit her out.
Yeah, so you could capture that queen by just shaking them all down. All the bees will be able to go down below that excluder, except for the queen, she'll stay on top.
I mean, they're great for.
But you need empty box, so.
They make great.
Yeah, they
make a
do,
lot of
so-
honey. I mean, but man, they just,
Very good.
man.
Okay, anything else? Good? Yep. Good. I have, look, also, if you want frames, we brought a semi-load of frames and woodenware, so if you want, I'll pass that savings on to you. And, queen, if you want to just buy a queen, or you want frames or nooks, have that sign up here. 12 boxes. If you want some woodenware, I will have some boxes. They're unassembled. I didn't have that price, that's why I didn't put that out there, but I will. It'll be cheaper than you can get anywhere else. Just come and talk to me. I'll have you sign your name down and I'll correspond with you if you want boxes.
Have a good night, everyone.